Evans, and this is Chris Evans.
Hey, y'all.
Thanks for listening to Georgia Living.
Welcome to the show. It's great to be back. Céline, we've had an insanely busy last 7 or 8 days since recording. What have we been up to?
Weddings and
Pumpkin picking.
Yeah, we did that. Pumpkin patch. We did wedding. We did
field trip chaperoning.
Oh, we missed trunk or treat because we were at the Pope High School football game.
Yep, we had
yeah.
Pope's homecoming parade and then the homecoming game, which was awesome. Such a great turnout from the community. Thanks to all who helped put that together. It was just a great time. Then we went to the homecoming game Friday.
I feel like we're doing something every day now.
It feels like we are doing something every day. The homecoming game was great. We have young kids, so we got to stay there until about halftime. And it wasn't an absolute blowout.
We played Sequoia.
Pope played Sequoia. It was a very good game. We had some great plays from Pope's offense and defense.
A few oohs and ohs.
Yeah,
that's all right.
A few O's.
Ooh.
The senior night was awesome. Got to see all the seniors lined up for photos and playing. And there's one more game left in the Pope season. They're going to be, I believe, at River Ridge.
They're away.
Is the next game. So
that was the last home game.
Yeah. Great being a part of the community there. And then let's see. The wedding. Geez, we were at the High and the Lows Hotel.
High and the Lows.
Yeah, it was a high-low wedding, right?
I just now realized that.
And
probably the slowest person on that
one. We're actually joined today in studio by our good friend and business partner, Reid Moore. And we're going to have him on in just a second. Welcome, Reid. Reid runs our commercial division. He was at the wedding with us for some mutual friends. Just a great time, good people, lots of great memories. Okay, so Céline, we've got Halloween is right around the corner. So instead of talking about a lot of events today, later in the show, we're going to get into our real estate nightmares. We're going to talk about some horror stories that can happen in real estate, whether that be haunted houses,
items that
client nightmares,
that stuff.
And Rob Doerr will be with us a little later to give us a mortgage update as well. All right, so let's dive into meeting with Reid. Reid, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here, and as you can tell by my voice.
Go ahead, Dad. Yeah, let's get you talking into that mic, and let's make sure it works. Go ahead and.
All right, is that better?
No.
Oh, hold on. Okay, is that better?
Picking you up.
Okay.
Yeah. We do have an echo.
You hear that echo?
Rob's. All right, go ahead.
Yourself on that.
On Google.
Hey, sorry,
yeah.
guys. Sorry, you there?
Rob, were you picking up Reid's echo?
No, I don't think so.
You weren't? Okay. Try that again.
Just ran to the other room to grab my water.
All right, is that better?
Yeah, that's good.
Okay.
Okay.
Let's run with it.
All right.
All right, Reid. We're totally not going to edit that out. Reid, welcome to the show. Reid Moore.
Hi,
I am getting the echo now.
Oh, you're getting an echo now. Okay.
So hit me. Now talk. Now,
grab my snowball, Mike.
no, because it's not the mic. It's just how many mics and different things we have in the studio today.
Talk loud.
Just talk loud. Rob, are you able to hear Reid when he's talking?
I am, and when I'm not talking, I'm muting just to make it better, hopefully.
Beautiful.
I'll take this off. Cool.
Yeah, there you go.
Okay. Well, no, it's good to be here. Fun to see y'all again so shortly from this weekend. And As you can tell, I'm still recovering. My voice is still recovering from this weekend because, yes, it was a late couple nights and a lot of fun had by all.
Oh, absolutely. So Reid, we've known each other for several years, and for anybody listening in, Reid Moore is the founding partner of TOA Commercial, which is one of our commercial it is our commercial division. It's any of the agents that work here at Select Realty. If they want to be commercial agents, they are working under you at TOA for that dividing line in the sand. But Reid, you're a Georgia boy.
Yep.
Tell us a little bit about where you grew up and kind of some of the things that you love about Georgia and what really makes this place your home.
Yeah, so I really grew up in the Alfred area, kind of Milton area. Well, I was born in Canton, and that's where I live now. Georgia's definitely home. My family's from here. My dad's family's from here, so it's where I've been born and bred. I love it because of really the outdoors. My biggest thing is one of my biggest passions is spending out time outside. But I love really the way we do business here. A lot of people say that we do business slow in the South. Well, that's not really true here in the Metro Atlanta area. And I love the fact that we're a very business-friendly state, which means typically we're real estate friendly. And even though we have seen prices surge and the craziness of the past couple of years, you still get a bang for your buck here in Georgia.
I couldn't agree more. As a matter of fact, what was it? It was Mableton last year that was ranked the highest or like one of the fastest growing cities in the state of Georgia. Yet it was also ranked as one of the most affordable cities in the state of Georgia, that you can still have locations like that where it's growing super fast, but it's also still highly affordable. I don't think that's going to last forever. Like, tell us a little bit about what you do in commercial real estate and kind of where you're involved with kind of in our community.
Also, how it's different from residential.
Oh, yeah.
That everyone knows. There's a huge gap between commercial and residential. It's totally different.
You're right. And actually, so I think that's a perfect way to introduce what the difference is. When you purchase a home, it's for your family. It is a financial decision, but it's, a liability depending on how you play the game, right? You're paying into it constantly and you're not really getting anything out until you sell, maybe you have some equity in there. With commercial, we always say you're buying the leases and the building just happens to come with it. So hopefully you're buying something that's cash flowing and it's paying the bills. So you're really taking on something that is going to pay you in the end. That is the difference, is you're buying something that is going to pay you throughout. I mean, residential, you can do that too with rental properties. Both commercial, the options are kind of endless, and the types of tenants and the types of assets you have. And that's all it really is you're purchasing an asset. There just happens to be real estate attached.
So the original Airbnb. No?
I like that.
Yeah.
Well, I don't like doing short term, but yeah.
Okay. Usually commercial leases are long term.
Yeah.
But the idea of it is an Airbnb.
Right. So
with the building.
For the building, for the masses, right? Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
So if somebody's thinking about getting into commercial, like who are the typical clients in commercial? Are they all business owners? Like, do you have to have this massive net worth in order to be in that space?
To be in there, no. There's a lot of ways to actually get involved in investing in commercial. There's syndications, there's investment funds, and of course, there are some big ones that you have to have a large amount of wealth to play in. But if you're wanting to be localized and just be part of deals where you don't manage it, that is a syndication as well as a fund. But you're not having to take on all of the risk. You're just putting in some capital and you're getting a piece of a deal. So
is that like a REIT?
No, it's more of like a group of individuals find a property, they lock it up under contract, and then they find the money for it. That's a syndication.
Okay.
And depending on the experience and the plan, they will pay you according to that, whether it could be as soon as it closes, you're starting to get monthly checks. At the end of 3 years, when they flip the property, you get paid on that flip, whatever the rest is left on your percentages promised. So that's one way you can get in as a syndication. But to answer your question, Chris, on who are these people, we deal with everybody from a mom and pop store owner to REITs and institutional money and funds as well. So we kind of touch a little bit of everything and type of people. I mean, if we just want to take Cobb alone, there's people, your next door neighbor may own a shopping center, you don't even know about it, or 2 commercial buildings. And it can be almost anybody, and it's not as hard to get in as most people think.
Yeah. As a matter of fact, I had a conversation last week with a gentleman who his goal is to get into commercial real estate investing and to have that large pass through. And he's planning to use residential as a stepping stone to that, because there's in the residential side, I ran out of space there. On the residential side, we have it's a lot faster to move properties and place tenants into cash flow. Now, sometimes on the commercial side, things, there's commercial real estate signs that I've driven by for years.
Yes.
Why is it that some move fast and some move slow in commercial?
Well, every landlord thinks they have the golden goose, right? And just to say, people are pickier. The landlord is pickier on the type of tenant they want in that tenant mix. So there's kind of twofold to answer that, why that sign is still there. One, commercial agents are lazy, and it's a lead gen.
Except for you.
Right, of course, except for you. So, having that sign out there gets, as lead generation. That building may be fully leased, or that shopping center may be fully leased. No one's taking down the sign.
Gotcha.
Right? It's name recognition.
It's Pobrecito's hiring now for 16 years.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. It's stuff like that. Or just the right tenant hasn't come along. They have enough, maybe it's a large shopping center and they're full on food and bev, but everybody that wants to be there is some type of small restaurant, and they're done on it. And the rent is too high for a women's boutique store to work or something like that. Mm-hmm. So it's all about getting the right tenant mix and just people taking down their signs.
Well, I think that's very insightful. But then, so sometimes you can see all these signs there that are forever, and now we know that there might not actually be property available. But then sometimes you see these commercial buildings and they just sit empty forever. No sign out there. But like maybe an old CVS or a Walgreens or one of these, old pharmacies. It just sits there on the corner.
There are a few in our area. So there's one off of Lassiter and Sandy Plains,
Yep.
right?
And these are recent
Yeah.
because they're doing a lot of closings. But why do these sit vacant for so long, Reid?
So kind of twofold as well. One is a lot of times those are corporate leases, and we just call them dark leases, meaning there's no tenant in place. However, that corporation is still paying that lease. So the landlord isn't extremely motivated to get somebody in there.
Okay.
Because they're still making money on it.
So if somebody owns a CVS building and CVS leaves, CVS is still making payments on those. How long are the leases?
They can be in excess of 25 years.
Wow. So we can have a property that's just sitting there empty for 25 years, and one of these massive corporations is paying for that, but they're not using it.
Correct.
And it's just and it can become a blight on our community.
Correct.
Okay.
That doesn't make any sense.
It's the nature.
Contract's
of
a contract, right?
It's a contract, exactly. So if that building is, and they're typically a CVS, a Walgreens, a bank is
Banks,
most
yeah.
of the time paying higher than market rate. So the landlord doesn't want to lose money by leasing it out to someone new. They want to ride it out as long as they can. Now, in many cases, say there is a 25-year lease and they just shut it down, they might negotiate something, a payment, or try to shorten that down, right? But if say the CVS was paying $23 a square foot, but really it's $14 a square foot is the market for anyone you're going to tenant there. I wouldn't have much motivation to put anybody in there either, because that means if they re-tenant it per those terms, CVS is no longer.
We're now going to make $10 a square foot less per year.
Yep.
So, Reid, you've grown up here in Alpharetta. You and your family are now in Canton. What do you see happening in our market? What has happened? What do you see on the horizon for like the residents of kind of Northwest Metro Atlanta?
Good question. We're still seeing a lot of homes being built, so more influx of people. The name of the game in development is to maximize every square inch you can get. So people push for these zero land lot properties, whether that's just a normal single family home. You're seeing less and less yards, less and less trees, which I'm not a fan of at all. Or if it's multifamily, people are fighting it, even though we're at a massive need for it. Really what I see is, and what we have been seeing is these cities and municipalities clamping down on any type of new development. We're seeing less and less retail centers be built, even though there's actually a need for it. And what we're going to see is a major shift in locations, cities trying to hold on to what they have and really go for that center, right? Your Avalons, people are loving those, your live, work, plays. However, they're insanely expensive to build. And as a tenant on your retail side, the rents are astronomical. I mean, I don't know how any of these businesses are making money. I feel like they just have to be loss leaders just because the rent it's ridiculous. I mean, we're talking even for a small store, maybe 1,200 square feet, they're paying $20,000 a month in just rent.
At the Avalon?
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
So, okay,
Locations like that.
For the people who are listening and who aren't living in Georgia or are thinking about moving to Metro Atlanta, where we are, just a little bit of orientation. So he grew up in Alpharetta and now lives in Canton. Alpharetta is northeast of, if you have a center, Midtown, I guess, of Atlanta. And then he moved sideways and north, so northwest to Canton, which they are completely different now. Alpharetta, Milton used to be very pastoral, very, a lot of land. However, once this development and other developments, like you were mentioning, the commercial, the Avalon, it's located in Alpharetta, and it's a very large commercial area with high end. Our house is there. They have the normal culprits, like the high end stores there as well.
Name them. There's a Tesla dealership there. You name it.
And it's very, very popular right now. So a lot of people want to be that Alpharetta, Milton area, and that's Fulton, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it is Fulton. Fulton's a very long county. It goes north and south. And then we have Canton, which you love deer hunting there because there's actually land, there's a lake, there's a lot more outdoor recreation there that's available for people compared to Alpharetta. So that's a little bit of orientation. Commercially, very different beasts too, right? Mm-hmm. You've got Alpharetta there that has the Avalon already. And then you have Canton, which has the tiny, and not so tiny, but the smaller city center that you were talking about, which you think everyone's pushing for those? Maybe? Yeah,
I think communities are liking them because it kind of isolates where the retail and the multifamily is. Mm-hmm. And, I think that's a big draw to them. That's why Gwinnett did theirs. There's Halcyon and Cumming, there's just another one announced, I think, for Snellville. And it's that seems to be where the trend is going. However, I don't know how sustainable it's going to be. Because it is so expensive and not everyone can afford the high end, right?
Right.
Even in where we live in Canton, they did a new development. It's more of your traditional strip centers, your big box stores and everything off 20. And just the amount of traffic and stress that it put on the area, you really see it and feel it. But I think the trend going forward depending on where you're at and who's in control, it's going to be a lot of green space and trying to really slow down the mass developments coming through, just stripping the land and having nothing there but chains.
You mean like the mass developments as neighborhoods or
Like-
commercial centers?
Like commercial centers, you know, where
Okay.
it's just strip center next to strip center next to strip center.
Oh, gotcha,
Yeah.
gotcha. It
Yeah.
just looks like a generic America all
Yeah,
throughout.
yeah, with just like, you know, now it's your Whataburger, your Chick-fil-A, your Starbucks, your Dunkin', everything lined out. I think
Yeah.
you're going to start seeing cities and like smaller towns try to stamp that out a little bit and
Really?
and try to get more to the small business hometown feel. That's what Canton's done. You know, we're seeing that in some other areas as well.
I really like it's really quaint, but
Mhm.
I can't help but think that our traffic is one of the guiding factors in all of this because it was unbearable maybe 20 years ago. And then now it's even more unbearable.
Yes.
You can't get anywhere here unless you have 40 minutes to an hour just to get from the north side to the south side. So with that, people tend to stay closer to where they are because, well, 15 minutes and you're tired, right? And stop and go traffic. So, and that's really all we have here during
Right.
rush
I
hour.
mean, just what we were talking about getting down to the wedding.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, just on Friday, 2 hours for most people, you know, hour and a half just to go
Yeah.
20 miles. I mean,
And it, it sounds a little ridiculous, but it's really the fact of our lives is that we're in stop and go traffic and we really don't have a public transportation system here. So yes, we do. But the funny thing is that it doesn't go north. It just stays kind of parallel this way. Look at map. We'll post a map of it. It doesn't go everywhere.
Yeah, our public transit is very limited, and even with that, I mean, as the population has been growing recently, we now have on the ballot an MSPLOST in Cobb County, which is supposed to be aimed at improving transportation, and MARTA and bus rapid transit. However, the plan is actually not detailed out. Right? Like the whole plan coming from some of our commissioners on this, it increases taxes, but it actually doesn't say what it's going to go towards or how it's going to be used. So it's a planless plan. So hopefully that's just going to get squashed and maybe one day they'll actually come out with a plan that can be worth the time and energy and money involved in the tax bill
The
to make those
MSPLOST
changes.
that you're referencing is a special tax that they would assess on us as people who live here. And the M stands for mobility, right?
I believe so. I know SPLOST, it's like special purpose local something tax. And so they have SPLOSTs for everything. There's educational SPLOST, there's transit SPLOSTs.
And that's how our high schools get remodeled. And they allocate those funds for that.
Yeah, in some cases, absolutely.
Not this one, though.
No, this one is MSPLOST, so it's mobility, it's transit, but it, again, ill-defined as far as the legislation is there. Well, Reid, so I think we got a little bit of an understanding about, your career and what you do for a living. Why did you choose Canton, Georgia for your family?
Well, it wasn't the city. So we were, living, I never thought I'd say that I was actually living in the city at the time, but it goes back to what Céline hit on as well, is the fact that I do like the outdoors. I do like to hunt. I live right by the lake. We have a boat, so we use that a lot. It is where I live is kind of country burbs in a sense, if you want to say, where, there's still people riding around on side by sides and, people have boats and trailers and I could bow hunt my backyard. So we really just wanted that quality of life, slightly slower pace, which everybody knows me, there's nothing slow. I move a million miles a minute but really just get out of all the craziness, out of all the chains, and choose somewhere that we knew had good schools. There's good moral foundations there, and that we felt comfortable raising our kids around other families that they could grow up with.
And it was a complete 180 for you. You went from townhouse city living to Canton, which is wow.
Well, right before that, I was in Cumming on acreage. Then I went down there.
Yeah.
So it was just timing of life, right? Guys switching. The city was fun. It served its purpose. And now it's good to be back. It's good to have that.
But that brings up a point, though, is that a lot of people follow that trajectory, is that when they're younger without children, they do tend to live downtown Atlanta, which is perfectly fine because, there's not a daycare you have to drive to at 7 a.m. in the morning. You don't have to go pick them up at, 2:25 in the middle of the day. It's doable. However, you kind of felt that clamping down on you very quickly, right?
Very quickly.
Yeah, and it's the same story that I hear
And
over
the cost
and
of
over.
living in Canton alone is, night and day from where I was.
Completely different.
Well, you did you did it in the order before kids, but you kind of did it reverse order because you were younger and you were living in the suburbs in this giant house, just you and your wife.
Yep.
And and not in the city, but you also owned a home relatively young. How old were y'all when you bought your first house?
26.
26.
Yeah. I think that's right after we got married.
The average age of your first time home buyer now is 36.
Wow.
So you've beat the generation by a decade. You owned a home young. You were in the suburbs, not the city. Do you think that probably contributed towards savings for where you are now, or were you spending probably just as much as you would have been?
Savings on
Just for building your career and establishing life as a young professional, just married, 26, own a home. Do you think that living out in the suburbs was probably a cost-saving maneuver versus what you would have done in the city?
It's funny thinking back. Part of the motivation to move into the city of Atlanta is, that's where I was working at the time as well. And that's where my network was growing. If I had kids when I was incoming, I would have been doing more family things and building my network that way, right?
Yeah.
Whether it's sports, local church, whatever.
The things you're doing now.
The things I'm doing now,
Yeah.
exactly. So the cost savings was on property taxes.
Okay.
And, my cost of all that was I could have ramped up in a probably slightly quicker way.
Okay.
Just through there. And gas. I could have saved a lot more on gas since I do drive a truck.
Yeah. I know that feeling. Okay. So you moved to the city, not for the city life, but you actually moved in pursuit of your goals. It made sense for you to be there because your work was there. That's where things were building.
Part of it was both because I was already talking about it. And we had a 4 a.m. Uber ride back to our house in Cumming. And I looked at my wife and I said, I can't do another one of these. Because, guy driving 40 miles an hour in the fast lane at 4 a.m. and I'm dying to get home from a late night. I said, I can't do another one. So we said, all right, you're in real estate. We'll start looking at places and get ready to sell. So it was, the thought was already there through career, but a 4 a.m. Uber ride is what kicked it off.
Usually it's something like that,
Right, we sold my wife on it. She's like, no, I get it.
Yeah, I feel it right now.
Yeah.
I could definitely understand that. When it comes to where you are now, though, what do you love about Canton? Because you've done the suburb thing in Cumming, you've done the townhouse thing in Atlanta. You're in Canton now. You've got a little bit of acreage. What do you love about it?
It's funny. I do love one of the developments that's close to us in the downtown Canton city center, area. The mill at Etowah, we love going there. It has green space. It's an old denim mill that has been repurposed. There's a brewery. They do a lot of stuff for families there. And I got 2 young boys. And so we just let them run on the green space and let them get tired. And wife and I grab a drink, either at the Reformation Brewery or like one of the other restaurants or bars. So it's a great family atmosphere. There's a lot of family stuff to do.
Okay.
And I do like my peace and quiet as well. And I like that I can walk out and see stars at night. So that's also another bonus of where I live.
Star.
Nice. Stars. Yeah.
Right.
You don't get as much light pollution as you do kind of down here towards more the big tall buildings and such.
We're not knocking Atlanta. We do love Atlanta. It's just for certain people and for certain times of your life.
Oh yeah, the whole point of even having these discussions on this show is to get a varying perspective from all of our guests about different parts and what they like about it, because it's not to knock any other area. It's just to say, hey, if you find out that you might be so inclined to enjoy these kinds of things as well, then this place might be one that you should check out.
Yeah.
So Reid, you love the outdoors. When you're not working, what or spending time with the family, like what kind of things do you love to do around Georgia?
Yeah. Well, Lake Allatoona, where I said I live, I'm really close there. I'm 3 minutes from a boat ramp. So during the summer, we're trying to spend every time we can out on the water with the fam. This time of year, it's college football and deer season. So that takes up much of my life, right? Go Dogs. That's really what we spend a lot of our time with. And then my wife always has things on our schedule. Like you said, feel like you're doing something every day. We do that as well. So we do a lot of the local festivals, really. We just recently went to one in Canton that was I don't even remember what festival it was. Maybe a beer and outdoor food. I mean, because I think there was 3 that day. You were at one of them.
Yeah.
We were at another one. Yeah. So we're constantly going to those, the local festivals. We love being outside. I always say if there's live music and a beer, I'll be there.
That's a great philosophy. And there's always something going on, especially this time of year. Whether you're in the Canton area, the Woodstock area, the Marietta area, it seems like every weekend there's something going on. And we've covered a lot of those events on the last episode. I think we're about ready to switch gears in just a sec. We're going to switch over to Rob, and then we're going to get into some real estate nightmares. Reid, thanks for sharing a little bit about your experiences around town, talking a little bit about your career and what you do. Rob, we're going to go ahead and switch over to you. Why don't you give us an update? Rob Doerr with eHome Loan Advisors for what's happening in the mortgage world.
How are you guys doing? I appreciate you having me again. So I think the main thing maybe to touch on is and I think we touched a little bit on it last week, but it's rates and how rates fluctuate so much. And how there's really no way to pinpoint and predict and kind of try to time rates the right way. So rates are a little bit higher right now. And we follow a lot of services that, people that all they do for a living is follow the charts and the trends and all that stuff and predict what rates are going to do. And, even they're wrong half the time. And their reports are like, hey, there's no reason the rates should be up today, but they are. And I don't know why. So to make a long story short, I've been working with a lot of people over the last month or so who either just want to gamble or think they're smarter than everybody else and kind of want to wait and see what happens with rates before they lock in. And most of those people are kind of kicking themselves right now because they didn't want to lock a rate in. They thought rates were going to go down, which they haven't. But in the grand scheme of things, rates are still good. You know what I mean? And the people that I'm dealing with that we're getting close enough to closing now where it's like, hey, we played the game. The rate game, they didn't go down, they went up, but we have to lock something in because we have to close next week. But when I really break it down for them, and I just had this conversation several times yesterday, was, listen, it's not your rate's a little higher than when we started, but we're talking like $50 a month. And if we're talking about rates coming down in the near future, which I think they will, and you're probably going to end up refinancing in like 6 months, $50 a month times 6 months, you're talking $300, right? So in the grand scheme of things, it's really not that big of a deal. And then when you do refinance, you're going to end up skipping a month's payment anyways. So, when you put it in those terms, it makes people feel better, and it should. I mean, it's, you just can't time rates. You just can't. And you don't want to wait until rates go down like we talked about last week, because then prices are going to go up. Just buy the house that you want now. And then when rates come down, we'll just refinance into a lower rate.
Always solid advice. So, Rob, where are rates right now for, your 740 plus FICO? What are those at?
Perfect credit and, down payment, you're looking at about 6.625. So that's what I mean. They're still good. It's just they're not quite as good as they were 30 days ago.
our first house was at a 6.25 in 2008. So that's kind of a historic average for a good rate.
Yeah. And then the funny thing is also like, so a lot of times people are so hyper focused on rates. And then I'm like, oh, who are you using for homeowners insurance? So like, oh, I'm just going to use my guy at Allstate. And I was like, well, you could honestly save more shopping your homeowners insurance around than you can shopping rates, to be honest with you, So a lot of times I'll get a insurance quote for somebody else that's much cheaper than who they were going to use. So, those are the kind of things that can also offset, rates being a little bit higher for now.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean that is actually something that we haven't thought about in a while, because if you can save, $40 a month on your insurance versus, $5 a month in shopping your lenders, it's probably going to be a bigger impact on your insurance, especially for those who haven't shopped it in a while, because insurance rates have just gone up and up and up over the last few years.
Yep.
All right. Well, good to know. One other question for you, Rob, before we kind of start talking about some real estate nightmares, is buy downs, because interest rates, they fluctuate, but also the amount that you can buy down for any given point, that fluctuates as well. And for our audience, a buy down is when you pay an additional, 1% of your loan is 1 point. You get to buy down a lower rate. So for that 6.6-ish, if they were to spend a point, what's that buying down today?
Generally, I'd say in this market, it's probably buying the rate down about 3/8, so 0.375. But here's the thing, though, is a lot of folks, like I said, are so hyper focused on the rate. But I was like, if we truly believe that you're going to be able to refinance in 6 months, then it's better just to take a higher rate and not pay that additional money to buy it down. Because think about it, if you spend $3,000 to buy your rate down 3/8, and it might save you, $60 a month on your payment. Well, after 6 months, if you refinance, then that money you spent to buy the rate down just disappears. Right? So it's almost, in my opinion, it's better to not be so focused on the rate, take a little bit higher rate at a cheaper cost, just knowing that rates should trend down in the next 6-12 months, and you'll be refinancing out of it anyways.
Wise words. If anybody is interested in getting a mortgage, you can find Rob Doerr's information on our website, selectrealty.com, with 2 L's, SELLECT, realty.com. All right. So the main event today, with Halloween coming up, is the nightmares in real estate that we deal with. Rob, you're on the lending side, so I'm pretty sure you're going to be dealing with some horror stories, and we're all in confidential industries, so we can't mention any names or revealing information about property addresses. But tell me one nightmare story for our audience about something that's happened in real estate for you.
Yeah, sure. So I don't know if it's as much of a nightmare as much as it is kind of funny, but we had a borrower who was supposed to close on a Monday, and for their down payment, they were pulling out funds from their 401k for the down payment, and they got the funds on Friday, and they were supposed to close Monday. They literally couldn't control themselves to not spend all that money, so they went on a shopping spree and spent like virtually all of that money over the weekend. And then on Monday, their closing came around and they couldn't understand why they couldn't close. And it's like, because you just spent all your down payment money over the weekend.
Oh my goodness.
It happens. People do crazy things.
Well, FYI, y'all, in all of the Georgia Association of Realtor contracts, if you have a financing contingency, it doesn't protect you from not having the money.
No, it does not.
You're not getting the loan, but if you can qualify for the loan and you don't have the money that's required, you're still in default of the contract. Holy crap. What ended up happening?
You know what? This is so many years ago. I don't even remember how we circumvented it. I think we probably just took another draw from their 401k or something and closed later in the week.
Oh my goodness. Well, unfortunately, that sounds like a lucky scenario.
Yeah.
They were able to still make it to closing. Unfortunately, they had additional funds, but geez Louise.
Yeah, I mean,
Shopping spree.
Can't make it up.
Oh.
All right. Céline,
Wow.
Give me a nightmare story about real estate.
So I actually don't have nightmare stories like you do because my business model is very different. I do simplylist.atlanta.com, and my business is really virtual. Either you can have help or you can have no help. You can do it on your own, and list a property and sell it. I provide you all the tools. So the with help, even then, I actually don't go out to the property, nor do I actually, I only do phone calls and emails after an offer is received. So at no point do I really go out there to find some strange things like you have. You have a laundry list, but because I'm physically not there, I have really not much to contribute to this.
Well,
But
you've been in some pretty horrible
and you know what?
stories.
The ones that I've been in
Yeah.
have been with you, though, because they've been your
come on.
listings, and they're okay. Well, I don't
Or,
want to say
or
that.
you can talk about like some of the haunted places that you've been in Georgia. It doesn't have to be about a nightmare real estate transaction.
Okay,
Just
I'll
give me
tell about that one house that really creeped me out that you had listed.
There you go.
Oh no, it wasn't listed, but you were touring it. So we called it the Dexter house, which is that serial killer that likes to chop up people, but very handsome, right? And so we go into this house and something just feels off. Something doesn't feel right in the air. We can't really put a finger on it. We go downstairs, and on top of a staircase that wasn't the staircase that we descended to was a throne, a toilet. I don't know why you would sit up there like you're a king in the Game of Thrones and do your morning business and look at the whole basement
It
from
was
there.
it was plumbed in there.
It was a
weird.
carpeted, staircase going up to the bathroom. That didn't have, I can't even call it a bathroom. It didn't have a door.
It was just a
It
toilet.
was just open space. And then if you go around the
On a
corner,
landing.
that wasn't even the weird spot. We call it the Dexter room because there was this really strange puddle of dark stain. It did not look right. And it was not in the good location either. In this room, it was kind of smack dab in the center. You kind of wonder what's going on. It was not craft material that was spilled. So,
It was one of those that, you know how you walk into an area and your hair will just kind of stand up on your neck?
it wasn't just one person. It was everybody who went into that one room, and we all bolted out. So that's really the one that I have with you. Otherwise, it's just nightmare stories, like Rob said, to where they didn't understand the contract. They just went ahead and did something, and then they come back and we're so close to it, and they're like, oh, we didn't do that, or oh, that's what you meant. There's a lot of that.
Those are super common.
Those are, but Dexter rooms, not as much for me because my business model doesn't follow that.
So I've got a nightmare story. When I was a new agent, I got a listing, and when I was new and starting out in the industry, I was just gung-ho for experience. So I would basically take any listing I could get for any commission I could negotiate, regardless of the fee or how little or much it was.
That's what you have to do.
Because, I believe that when you start your career, if you're selling two things, your education and your experience. And if you don't have the experience or the education, you have a lower rate. Just simple economics. So I get it's during the recession. We get this individual, they had bought a house at auction. They had this idea to move and renovate the house. This is an 8,000 square foot house. This is built in the mid 80s. It's in Athens, Georgia, and the house was gorgeous, but in disrepair. So throughout the whole main level, it's 10-foot ceilings. It's 9-foot doorways. Everything is solid wood, but everything needs to be refinished. all the trim work, all the flooring, all the paint. It's structurally sound, but it required a lot of work. This could have been $1 million house. It was bought at auction for like $300 and some $1,000. So I get this listing and I put it up for sale, and it sits. And it sits and it sits and it sits, and we drop the price and it sits, and now we've got the price to basically auction prices, and it's still sitting. So one day I get a call from a real estate agent that's local. She's been doing it a lot longer than I have. I'm relatively new. And she asked me if I had ever Googled the address. So
That's never a
good sign, because that means that lots of people around here know more about this house than I know, and more than my clients knew, because they bought it at auction. They were from out of state. So I get home and I Google the house, and the address pops up with a news article about two gentlemen that are serving multiple consecutive life sentences in a Georgia penitentiary. And I'm like, oh, well, what happened here? It turns out there was some pretty tragic stuff that happened in the house. Essentially, they ran a cult. And this cult, they might have been friends with Diddy or Epstein, because
Pre-Diddy?
I don't know. Well, they were arrested the house went up for auction in 2008 or 9. So I don't know. But according to the article that I read at the time, they had over 40 documented cases of molestation and abuse that happened in that house, absolute nightmare scenario, which taught me the lesson that if I ever buy a house, I'm going to go to Google, I'm going to type in the address, and then I'm going to click on the news filter. And I want to know, has this property ever been in the news? Because walking through that house, it was in a state of disrepair that you didn't get a bad vibe. I also didn't go into the basement, so
they had a Dexter room.
They probably had several rooms down there. But I never got a bad vibe in the house. It just felt like a project. So sometimes you don't get that like hair standing up on your neck feeling like we got when you were touring with me in the Dexter house. But we absolutely had a house that was the stuff nightmares are made out of. So when it comes to selling a house,
didn't sell that house.
No. It ended up not selling. I lost the listing. It expired. I don't ever know what ended up happening to it, because
we didn't feel right after that either.
No, we let that listing go. I said, all right, you know what? This is
not meant to be.
it ain't going to sell the recession was getting worse. Right. So they had bought it early in the recession and values were still declining. So they were losing money on it. I don't know if they ever kept it, renovated it, did whatever. But yeah, that was an interesting one. So sometimes you deal with a nightmare house. Sometimes you deal with nightmare agents who don't do the right things for their clients, like extend contracts when they're supposed to. Sometimes you deal with, all sorts of stuff.
Well, do commercial buildings have nightmare stories?
Yeah, Reid.
They don't live there, so.
I know. I was trying to think of one in the commercial, and I had
maybe a weird use of a building, or I'm not so sure.
Lots of weird uses. A lot of times in these towns, it'll be an old house that was turned into a commercial building.
Yes.
But when Chris started talking about it, I actually this is residential property, but it was actually my parents for a while. That was a haunted house.
Ooh.
And it's my dad and never had believed in ghosts, thought it was all fake until they were living there and he experienced it. My parents, after college, like when we were all out, I got 3 brothers, so 4 boys. They were kind of empty nesters, ready to downsize. So they were renting a house before they were going to buy the house they were going to retire in.
Very common.
Yeah, very common. And just because the market they were moving to, there's not a lot of selection, so they're waiting for the right one. They end up renting a house in a golf course community. Nice. It wasn't like your typical rental. And when I came home from college. This is like the in-between time, right? When your career's not going, I'm not married yet, and back at home.
Sure.
I was working still, of course, but I came downstairs one day and my mom and my little brother were talking about how the house is haunted, and I'm like rolling my eyes. And the neighbors did tell us when they moved in that, just the other month, the husband died. This was the wife's fourth husband that's died on her. And less than 7 days later, her boyfriend was living there. Okay. So I go, okay, that is a little weird. Maybe it's a little Black Widow. And, we had so many experiences in the house, and the one my favorite I tell, because I witnessed it right there with my mom. I came home from work. I used to be a personal trainer, and I came home between, it's maybe around noon, and my older brother had just left for work. I'm passing by his room, and my mom had this little decorative thing that had fake apples in it, right? Very heavy little piece of glass, but fake apples in it, and they were all over the floor. And
Are they glass apples?
No, they're like foam or maybe wood. It was in a glass container.
And you didn't have your dog there?
No, I did. There's no way he could. This is like on a dresser. This thing's like on a massive armoire. It's in the center, but they're all over the floor. And my brother, being my older brother, and I'm like, man, he's lazy. I can't believe he didn't pick these up before he walked out. My mom hears me like cussing out of my breath. And I do it. My the master was across from his room, and she's folding laundry, and she hears me, and she goes, well, it could be the ghost. And I put it up, and I put it right back on the center of the dresser. And I was like, Mom, there's no such thing as ghost. That's made up. And right after I say that, we hear boom, and I look, and the thing is knocked off the center, laying on the ground, apples everywhere.
Oh, geez.
All right. I mean,
I stand corrected.
I go on all the stories like we were sitting there watching TV with my friend.
Same house?
Same house. Microwave kicked on, the door opened, closed, and just started spinning with no nothing on there. And he looks at my brother and I and goes, so we're not going to talk about that? I'm like, no.
Oh my gosh.
Not going to talk about it.
So it was definitely a haunted house.
I'm just going to ignore that over here.
Yeah.
Yeah. But on the commercial side, I've got requests for every type of use you could dream of, illegal.
Really?
And
really? Yeah. Illegal?
Well, when you start talking to people about the finances and everything, what's actually going to go on here?
Oh, yeah, no.
Yeah, exactly.
That's a big red flag.
Yeah.
We can't work with you.
Exactly.
We do legal stuff, okay?
Right.
Yep. One last thing before we wrap up for today is Reid didn't get to this in the spotlight section, but you were just recently in North Carolina.
Yep.
So when we're talking about nightmare scenarios,
right,
in real estate, experiencing a natural disaster has got to be up there with just the top of the worst of the worst. Mm-hmm. And you got a chance to get out and spend a couple of days hands-on helping to rebuild after Helene went through. Would you share some of the experience that you had with that kind of a nightmare?
Sure. Don't build close to water. Like rivers or creeks. I mean, the devastation was unreal, and it was just, entire towns we saw completely wiped out. You're in a mountain town, so naturally your head doesn't go there. Now you're thinking flood. Well, you're up on a ridge. Well, they don't allow building on ridges anymore. I think that's going to change. Anyone who built along the creeks, and I'm talking creeks, they're actual creeks, there are small rivers in the area I was at, which was north of Asheville. House is completely flooded, underwater, or gone.
And when you say creek, about how deep is this?
You can, if there's water running through it, at most points you can walk across in ankle boots.
Okay, so this is not deep.
No.
But yet that amount of water with this storm wiped out the Everything?
Towns.
Oh my
Towns.
gosh.
I have photos and videos of the water line being over 35 feet tall.
Oh my god.
I don't
Yeah,
think
in
you
trees.
touched on why you went up there though.
Yeah.
We went to clear some roads and cut firewood. So, it's still a rural area, and a lot of people heat their homes with wood.
Yeah.
And so, elderly people, retirement, and just people that have absolutely nothing left. So we went up and to clear some of these rural roads because our government isn't doing much of anything. And so, yeah, that's what we did. I chainsawed and moved lumber for 3 days. But got some work done up there.
Well, thank you for putting that time in to help our neighbors. And a lot of these mountain communities, man,
We used to live there.
they need help. And yeah, we actually stayed in a haunted house in Franklin, North Carolina for a little while. There was a spirit upstairs where we saw some shadows and threw some holy water on it one time, and it just kind of went away.
We lived there. We didn't stay there.
Yeah, well, we lived there for 6 months.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, so there's some terrifying things that can happen in real estate, from bad contracts to bad spending to natural disasters. Thank you all for joining us this week. If you haven't already, please subscribe on YouTube. Hit the little bell so you get notified when we get a new video or episode out. Give us a review on your favorite podcast episode so that we can help reach a larger audience with this show. And we'll see you back here next Tuesday. Have a great day, everybody from Georgia Living.